6 young women were kneeling in the dirt outside Thaddeus Bell's ranch. Their faces were messy with tears and dust. But that guy they were begging for help hadn't talked to anyone in 3 whole years. What they were gonna ask him would make him pick between staying all alone or facing something way scarier than being lonely. The sun was super hot in the quiet valley where Thaddeus had made his own world of silence. His rough hands held the porch railing tight as he looked at the crazy sight in front of him. 6 girls in ripped dresses, kneeling like broken toys by his super long fence. The youngest was maybe 17, the oldest probably 25. His throat felt super dry. 3 years since he'd heard anyone's voice except his own bouncing off the canyon walls. 3 years since he'd chosen to live like this, cutting off everyone from the outside world. The nearest town was 2 days away through tough land. Nobody came here by mistake, but there they were. The girl with reddish-brown hair looked up first. Her green eyes showed a kind of fear in you, even though he tried hard to forget it. She tried to talk, but only a quiet croak came out. Her lips were cracked, her fists tired and thin. Whatever brought them here, they'd come a long way and been through a lot. Thaddeus felt his carefully built walls start to shake. Every part of him wanted Totten away. Go back to his cabin and act like this never happened. He'd learned the hard way that helping people only brought pain. That trust was something he couldn't afford. That being alone was the safest way to live. But as the reddish-haired girl struggled to stand, wobbling like she might fall, something moved in his heart, a feeling buried so deep he thought it was gone. The feeling that maybe hiding wasn't the same as being safe. The girl took a step forward, her voice super quiet across the space between them. Her words will break the silence he'd rapidarined himself like a shield. And once she spoke, there was no going back, because what she was about to say would show that his 3 years off being alone were nothing compared to the choice he was about to face. The reddish-haired girl's voice cracked, but her words cut through the desert air like a sharp knife. "Please, mister, we got nowhere else to go. They're retching us." Thaddeus held porch railing tighter, his knuckles turning white against the sun-bleached wood. Chasing, that word brought back memories he'd tried to forget for years. Pictures of another woman and a third desperate cry for help. Another time had made the wrong choice. His jaw clenched so hard it hurt. "You need to leave," he shouted back, his voice scratchy from not being used. "I can't help you." But even as he said it, he saw things that made his stomach twist. The girl's dress wasn't just torn, it was ripped in waist that looked like someone had hurt her. Dark stains were on the fabric, something that looked like dried blood. The other 5 girls had similar marks of being treated badly. Whatever they were running from had already caught them once. The girl stumbled forward another step, her hand pressed to her side. When she moved it, Thaddeus saw fresh blood leaking through her fingers. His breath stopped. She was hurt, maybe badly. They looked half dead from being tired and thirsty. "They took our wagon 3 days ago," she went on, her voice getting weaker. "Killed our guide. Said they'd do worse if they caught you a sagging. You're our last hope, mister. The only person between here and the border." Border. That word hit Thaddeus like a punch. These weren't just lost travelers. They were runaways. Whatever trouble they had will become his trouble if he let them stay. He'd learned that lesson before, and it had cost him everything. But as he watched the girl wobble, her face getting paler, every second, something inside him broke. She was gonna fall. They all were. If he sent them away now, he'd be signing their death papers as surely as if he'd shot them himself. The girl's legs gave out, and she fell to her knees in the dirt, her blood making a growing stain under her. The other girls were shadow her side, forgetting their own weakness to help their leader. Thaddeus found himself walking down the porch steps before his brain caught up with his body. 3 years of being alone had taught him a lot, but it hadn't killed the part of him that couldn't watch someone suffer when he could do something about it. But as he got closer to that group, he heard a new sound, hoofbeats far off but getting closer. Lots of horses moving fast across the hard desert ground. Someone was coming, and they were hitting hard. The reddish-haired girl heard it too, Fear flashed across her face as she grabbed Thaddeus's arm with bloody fingers. "They found us," she whispered. "Oh no, they found us." Thaddeus looked to the horizon, where a cloud of dust was rising. Whoever was coming would be here in less than an hour. When they got here, they'd find 6 women clearly running from something and one man who was about to learn that some choice can't be undone. Thaddeus's mindrest as he thought about distant options. The riders would reach his ranch in less than an hour. 6 hurt women couldn't outrun men on horses, especially noting their condition, but helping them mean ruining the safe place he'd built over 3 years. "Get them inside," he heard himself say, the words sounding strange in his mouth. The reddish-haired girl, who said her name was Clara, tried to argue. "We won't bring trouble to your house, mister. We can hide in the rocks." "You'll die." "In the rocks," Thaddeus said flatly. He was already moving, his survival instincts kicking in over 3 years of living like a hermit. "And those riders will find your bodies by morning. Then they'll know someone helped you." He picked up the Weeks girl, a blonde who was barely a teenager, burning with fever. Her weight shocked him. She was so skinny, lighter than a bag of feed. When had he last held another person? The memory felt like touching fire. The other women helped each other as they stumbled toward his cabin. Thaddeus saw things that made him mad. Rope burns on their wrists, bruises shaped like fingers on their necks. These weren't just runaways, they were victims. Inside the one-room cabin that had been his whole world for 3 years, the women fell onto whatever they could find. His place, which had felt just right for a guy who wanted nothing from the world, now seemed way too small for 6 desperate people. Clara pressed her hand harder against her hurt city as she looked around the cabin. Her eyes saw the single bed, the simple furniture, and no sign that a woman had ever lived here. "You're alone," she said. It wasn't a question. "By choice," Thaddeus answered, already moving to block the windows. "And you're about to find out why." Through gaps in the wooden shutters, he saw the dust cloud getting bigger. The riders were pushing hard, which meant they were either desperate to catch the girls or sure they were close. Neither was good news. "Who are they?" he asked Clara as he checked his rifle. The gun felt weird in his hands after so long, but his body remembered how to use it. Clara's face went pale. "Slavers," she whispered. "They bought us from a man who promised U.S. jobs in the territories, said we'd be teachers or seamstresses." Instead, she pointed to her ripped dress and bruised throat. That made Thaddeus feel cold inside. Slavers, the worst kind of bad guys, who saw people as things to buy and sell. The kin would kill anyone who got in their way. The hoofbeats were close. Enough now that he could hear different horses. At least 6 riders. Maybe more. Professional men who wouldn't back down from one rancher's fight. As Clara struggled to stand, her face twisted with pain and grit, she said something that made Thaddeus's blood freeze. "There's something else you need to know. Something that makes this worse than you think." Clara's next words hit Thaddeus like a punch. "The man who sold us to the slavers, he's a federal marshal. Badge and all. Name's Wade Garrett." The rifle almost slipped from Thaddeus's hands. A federal marshal that changed everything. These weren't just random bad guys could scare off with a gun. If a marshal was involved, the corruption went deep, all the way to the people who ran things. "That's why I can't go to the law," Clara went on, her voice weaker as blood kept leaking between her fingers. "Garrett's got friends in 3 territories. Anyone who tell, he'll hear about it first. Then we disappear for good." Through the window, Thaddeus could see the riders coming over the hill that looked over his valley. 6 men on horses moving like hunters would trap their prey. One of them wore something shiny in the sunlight, a badge. Thaddeus felt the heavy weight of tough choices on his shoulders. Help these women, and he'd become a target. Send them away, and they'd die. Either choice would bring trouble he wasn't sure he could handle. "There's a root cellar," he said finally, his voice rough. "Behind the cabin, under a hidden floor. It's where I keep supplies for winter. You can hide there." But Clara shook her head. "They'll search everywhere. These guys are good. They've been tracking us for days, and they know their stuff." The youngest girl, the one with fever, spoke forth first time. Her voice was super quiet, but her words cut through the tension like a knife. He's right to be scared. We bring death wherever we go. Thaddeus looked at her closer and felt his heart skip. She was maybe 16, with light blonde hair and blue eyes that knew too much for someone so young. What kind of monsters sold kids? The hoofbeats were close enough now that he could hear leather creaking, men talking in low voices. They were spreading out, surrounding the ranch like soldiers, professional kidnappers who'd done this a bunch of times. "Listen to me," Thaddeus said, his voice steady even though his mind was a mess. "I need to know exactly what we're dealing with. How many men? What weapons? How far will they go?" Clara met his eyes, and he saw pain that made his 3 years. Oh, fighting seemed like a picnic. They'll burn this place down if they have to. Kill anyone who gets in their way. These aren't guys with hearts, mister. They're devils pretending to be men. Through the shutter slats, Thaddeus got his first clear look at the lead rider. The man sat on his horse like he owned everything. His badge caught the light as he checked out the ranch. Even from far away, Thaddeus could see the cold planning in his posture. This was Wade Garrett, the federal marshal who sold people for money. If you were Thaddeus, what would you do? Fight against impossible odds, knowing you'd probability but might save 6 innocent lives? Or try to talk your way out, maybe saving yourself but possibly dooming women to something worse than death? Tell me in the comments which side you'd pick, because what Thaddeus shows next would decide if anyone in that cabin would live to see another sunrise. The riders stopped just out of rifle range, close enough to talk, but far enough to stay safe. Garrett raised his voice, and his words carried clearly across the desert. "Afternoon, friend. We're looking for some runaway property 6 women stole themselves from their owners. Seen anyone like that around here?" Thaddeus stepped onto his porch, rifle held loosely but ready. The afternoon sun made long shadows across the yard as he fastened 6 men on horses who looked dangerous, like heat from a fire. Marshal Garrett sat in the middle, his badge shining against a black vest that had seen too much blood. "Haven't seen anybody." Thaddeus called back, his voice flat from being used to being alone. "Don't get many visitors out here." Garrett's smile was cold as ice. "That so? Mind if we take a look around? Sometimes folks hide in places they think nobody will find." Behind Thaddeus, inside the cabin, he could hear the faint sounds of the women trying to stay quiet. Clara had gone silent, probably pissed out from losing blood. The ounges was still burning with fever. None of them could run, even if there was somewhere to go. "This is my land," Thaddeus said, "and I don't remember inviting you to search it." One of Garrett's men, a mean-looking guy with scarce and dead eyes, spat tobacco on the dust. "Federal authority be its private property. Hermit, got something to hide, or you just naturally unfriendly?" Thaddeus felt sweat on his forehead even with the desert heat. These guys weren't here to talk. They'd already decided he was hiding something. The only question was how far they'd go to prove it. "Funny thing about hermits," Garrett said, getting off his horse smoothly. "They usually pick being alone because they got secrets." "What's our secret, friend?" The marshal took a step closer, his hand resting on his gun. "See, we've been tracking those women for 3 days. Lost their trail about a mile from here, where the ground gets hard. Now, I'm thinking a smart guy might have helped them cover their tracks. Question is, why would he do that?" Thaddeus could feel the moment dangling like a tightrope. Behind him, one of the women made a soft sound of pain. It was so quiet, but in the desert silence, it was like a shout. Garrett's head tilted like a wolf hearing something. What was that? "Wind," Thaddeus said fast. "Loose board in the roof." But Garrett was already moving, pulling his gun with smooth practice. "Boys, I think our hermit friend's been keeping secrets. Why don't we have a proper look inside?" The other 5 men got off their horses together, moving like a team who'd done this lots of times. Thaddeus knew with cold certainty that talking his way out wasn't an option anymore. As Garrett stepped onto the porch, his boots creaking on the old wood, he spoke in a voice that promised trouble. "Here's what's gonna happen. You're gonna step aside, and we're gonna collect our property. Anyone who gets in the way gets buried in the desert, where nobody will find them. If you're liking this story, subscribe to the channel. But as Garrett reached for the cabin door, Thaddeus made a choice that would change everything. The choice Thad had been building since. He saw 6 desperate women kneeling and hissiered. Thaddeus raised his rifle in one motion, the barrel stopping, inches from Garrett's chest. The marshal froze, his hand still reaching for the door. His eyes widened with surprise and thinking. "I said, this is my land," Thaddeus repeated, his voice super calm. "And I meant it." For a moment, the world held its breath. 6 guns pointed at Thaddeus from the yard, but his rifle stayed steady on Garrett's heart. The marshal's face showed surprise, then anger, then a cold kind of respect. "You're making a mistake, friend," Garrett said softly. "A big one. Those women belong to us, bought and paid for. You're messing with legal business." "Legal?" Thaddeus Lowell was bitter. "Slavery's been illegal for years, Marshal, even out here in the territories." Garrett's smile came back, thin and mean. "These ain't slaves, Hermit. They're indentured servants. Signed contracts and everything. They owe debts that need paying, and we're here to collect." Inside the cabin, Thaddeus heard Clara's voice, weak but fierce. "Lies! We never signed nothing. He drugged us, took us from a church social in Kansas." Garrett's face got dark at being overheard. "Sounds like you got some stolen property in there, friend. Property that's making you make bad choices." The standoff stretched like a rope about to snap. Thaddeus knew the math. 7 armed men against 1, with 6 hurt women caught in the middle. Even if Hash hit Garrett, the others would tack him down before he could reload. But sometimes math didn't matter. Sometimes a guy had to stand up, no matter the odds. "Here's what's gonna happen," Thaddeus said, his voice full of sure power. "You're gonna get back on your horses and ride away. You're gonna forget you ever saw this place or these women. And you're gonna find a new job." Garrett scarred. Helper shifted in his saddle, his gun hand twitching. "Boss, just say the word. We can drop him and be done." But Garrett held up a hand, his eyes never leaving Thaddeus's face. Something had changed in the marshal's look. He was seeing something. He didn't expect the Manuel was ready to die. "You know what I think?" Garrett said slowly. "I think you've got history with situations like this. I think maybe you failed to help someone once before, and now you're trying to make up for it." The words hit like punches. Thaddeus felt old memories clawing up another woman, another cry for help, another time he'd chosen safety over bravery and watched Simeon die because of it. "Touched a nerve, did I?" Garrett pushed. "What was her name? Wife? Sister? Daughter? Someone you let down when it mattered?" Thaddeus's grip tightened on the rifle, but his aim stayed steady. "Her name was Sarah. She was my wife. And I won't make the same mistake twice." Garrett nodded, like he'd figured something out. "Sarah. Pretty name. Bet she died screaming, knowing you were too scared to save her." The anger that exploded in Thaddeus's chest almost made him lose it. For a second, his finger tightened on the trigger, ready to wade Garrett's life, no matter what happened next. But in that moment of burning rage, he heard something that changed everything. Clara's voice from inside the cabin, barely a whisper but clear in Thieves' air. "Thaddeus, that is his name. The man who killed your wife." The words hit Thaddeus like a double lightning strike. Wade Garrett, the name had spent 3 years trying to forget. The man who'd come to their home with promises of protection, who demanded Sarah as payment when Thaddeus couldn't pay his fees. The man who'd laughed when Thaddeus begged for mercy, who'd taken Sarah anyway when he didn't fight. Garrett's eyes sparkled with mean joy. Well, Thaddeus Bell, the coward of Willow Creek, wondered what happened to you after you ran off like a scar dog. The rifle shook in Thaddeus' hands, but not from fear. 3 years of guilt and anger focused into burning point. "You killed her." "I didn't kill her," Garrett said, pretending to be innocent. "You did by being too scared to fight for her. She called your name when she died, you know?" Wondered where her brave husband was. Thaddeus felt something deep inside him break. The wall shed built around his sadness, the excuses he'd made for his fear, the lies he'd told himself about having no choice, all of it fell apart. But here's the best part. Garrett went on, his voice full of mean happiness. "History's gonna happen again, except this time Instead of one woman, you got 6. And you're gonna watch them take every single one, just like Boar. Behind Thaddeus, Clara's voice got stronger, fueled by desperate anger. He's lying, Thaddeus, about your wife calling for you. Sarah Bell died fighting. I know because I was there. I wasn't of the women he took before her. The truth hit like a hard punch. Thaddeus turned his head slightly, never fully taking his eyes off Garrett. What? Sarah Bell, Clara went on, her voice stronger despite her wounds. Blonde hair, blue eyes, scar on her left hand from a cooking accident. She fought like a wildcat when they took her. Broke one man's nose, nearly took another's eye. And when she died, she wasn't calling for you. She was cursing Garrett's name. Garrett's confident smile slipped for the first time. Shut your mouth, woman. But Clara kept going. Her words, heavy with truth. She told him about you in the wagon. Said you weren't a coward. Said you'd promised to come for her, and she believed you would. She died, believing you'd come. Thaddeus felt the world shift. For 3 years, he'd carry it. Weight of being a coward. Sure had failed the woman he loved. But if Clara was telling the truth, I searched for weeks, he whispered. The words ripped from his throat. Followed every trail. Checked every town. But you were already gone. Garrett got his confidence back. But something had changed in his posture. He wasn't playing with a broken man anymore. He was facing Simeon dangerous. Touching reunion, but it changes nothing. You still is there, and you're about to lose again. The marshal's hand moved toward his gun, but Thaddeus was already pulling the trigger. There a full spoon. Split. The desert silenced like thunder, and Wade Garrett flew backward off the porch. His chest turning red. Chaos broke out in the yard as Garrett fell. His 5 men started shooting at the same time, bullets splitting the porch railing and breaking windows. Thaddeus dove behind a water trough, working his rifle's lever fast. The man who'd spent 3 years running from fighting remembered how to fight, but the odds were bad. 5 professional killers against 1 rancher, with 6 hurt women stuck in the middle. Thaddeus knew he had maybe 30 seconds before they overpowered him. Then, Clara appeared in the cabin doorway, holding a shotgun she'd found inside. Blood stained her dress, but her hands were steady as she fired both barrels into the nearest rider. The man fell from his horse, screaming. The Rucheller, she shouted over the gunfire. There's more weapons down there. The other women came out of the cabin like angry angels, each holding rifles or pistols from Thaddeus's hidden stash. They were hurt, tired, barely able to stand, but they'd found something worth fighting for their freedom, and the first man in years who'd been willing to die for it. The gunfight that followed was short but rough, caught between shots from the cabin and the porch. Garrett's remaining men panicked and ran. 2 more fell before they reached their horses. The survivors rode fast for the horizon, leaving their dead behind. In the sudden quiet, Thaddeus found himself kneeling beside Wade Garrett's body. The man who'd haunted his nightmares for 3 years was finally gone, but the wind felt empty. Sarah was still gone. The years of hiding couldn't be undone. Clara knelt beside him, her own wounds forgotten. She'd be proud of you, she said quietly. Sarah, she'd be proud you finally fought back. Thaddeus looked up at the 6 women who'd changed everything by refusing to give up. Clara, bleeding but strong. The fever-sick girl who'd found strength she didn't know she had. 4 others, whose names he didn't even know yet, but who'd stood with him when it mattered. What will you do now? He asked Clara. She smiled, for the first time since he'd met her. We talked about it while you were playing Harrow. There's a town 2 territories north that needs teachers. Good folks who won't ask too many questions about where we came from. And you? She asked. Will you go back toe-hiding in this valley? Thaddeus looked around at his ranch, the place that had been both his safe spot and his prison for 3 years. Thought the silence he'd loved now felt empty, not peaceful. The loneliness that had protected him now seemed like another kind of death. No, he said, surprised by how serene sounded. I think I've been alone long enough. If you're liking this story, subscribe to the channel. 6 months later, a 1-room schoolhouse in the territory of New Haven welcomed its newest teachers. 6 women who, To learn that freedom was worth any price, thought their friend Thaddeus built the school with his own hands, making each desk and window frame with the same care he'd once used to build walls around his heart. Clara married him on a spring morning when the desert bloomed with wildflowers, and she wore Sarah's wedding ring with pride, knowing some loves are strong enough to bless new beginnings. The fever-sick girl, whose name was Grace, grew strong and tall, becoming the best eater in 3 territories. And sometimes, on quiet evenings, when the wind was just right, Thaddeus could swear Sarah's voice in the desert breeze, telling him she was proud of the man he'd finally chosen to be. Now click on the video on the screen to hear a story even better than this one, with a twist so powerful it'll stick with you long after the last word is spoken. Click on video.